Now let's go into some of the really crazy stuff in my head. First off, I think people 20,000 years ago were way smarter in a lot of ways than we are today. I mean, how would those people create the Nazca lines, the Sphinx, the pyramids, Stonehenge, or any of the other ancient buildings that we know of today? I'm sure there were many more back then that don't exist anymore because we've torn them down over the years and things just wear out eventually. And knowledge, I mean, there's so much knowledge that's been lost over time that I'm sure 20,000 years ago they had, that it's kind of scary what we're actually missing. This brings me to another crazy thought. The idea of Atlantis. This is something that's been around for a while, this whole idea, ever since, they wrote about it in ancient Greece. But I think that Atlantis actually existed. I think the Atlantis that they talk about in the Greek myths and everything was actually an area that existed in the area which is now the Mediterranean Sea. I say this because I was watching a Discovery Channel thing a while back, and they were talking about a wall that they found 300 feet underwater in the Mediterranean. I started to think, how could this be? How could there be a wall that deep in the water? Because even back then, when this would have been built, the water level was not low enough for that to exist. So then I came to the conclusion that the Straits of Gibraltar was actually a land bridge at one point. I'm probably way off kilter here, but I really think that there was a land bridge there and that at one point it broke through, and thus causing the Great Plains that are now the Mediterranean Sea to flood. These plains would have been great for agriculture, especially since of the highly volcanic soil that they have. And it would also have helped to lead to many of the mimicking diets between all the areas around the Mediterranean, and also all the cultural similarities that exist. I also believe there was an area that would be considered an Atlantis in Bimini, because of the Bimini Road and all the structures that they found underwater, which would have been above water about 10 to 15,000 years ago, before the end of the last ice age. Also in Japan, where they found structures right around the island there. These structures go out for about 100 miles and encompass many different forms and many different styles, and therefore I really think that when the water was down lower, there was a much bigger culture on this planet than you would have expected. I think these people were also much more educated in the ways of the world itself than we are now. More connected to themselves, more connected to the earth, and more connected to what they were actually doing here. So now that I've talked about my ideas on theology in the past, let's talk about the future. Something's going to happen and it's going to be big. This is my bottom line. I'm talking about this whole idea of 2012. I'm not one of these doomsdayers who thinks that the world's going to end, everyone's dead, bada bing, bada boom, the end, it's over. I'm thinking of it from the point of view that the events that are going to happen around that time period have not happened more than, say, 15 times in the entire existence of a Homo sapien form. Every 26,000 years, the poles of the planet change. Never before has the Earth been aligned between the Sun and the center of the galaxy. The galaxy, which they say has a black hole in the center of it. Also, many things have been predicted in the past. One of my favorites is Edgar Cayce, who predicted everything about Atlantis and Bimini. He also talked about the Sphinx and how there's a chamber under one of the paws, even before X-rays had showed us that this was true. Things like this just seem way too ironic to not be true. So I have to ask, what could all these correlations lead up to? Well, I'll tell you, this is what my thought is. We're about to come up to the semicolon in the sentence. For the past 26,000 years, give or take, we've lived in the society that we know. We've developed what we've become. And now we're about to hit that point in the sentence where things are going to change dramatically and therefore a comma wouldn't suffice. I kind of imagine about a 20-year time frame, give or take. I don't know, this is just me talking. And in this 20-year time frame, starting in 2012, we'll see a series of very dramatic changes. The problem is these dramatic changes will probably lead to a large decrease in the human population, will probably put us in more of a restricted lifestyle, and will most likely put the world into a Great Depression of sorts. They talk about how one big thing is going to kill off man. I don't think one big thing could kill off man. We've survived as long as we have for some reason. I do, however, think that a compilation of many things coinciding with many social problems and cultural issues that we're having today could lead to a big, 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 big problem. So what I'm really saying here is you have to be aware of the things that are going on in the world, otherwise you can't prepare yourself for the future. Bottom line. They say that the woolly mammoth went extinct because of a compilation of many different things. First off, there was a great time of fire around the world. They're talking about forest fires, drought, So everything was just burning, and therefore the animals, including terror birds and the mammoths and the saber-toothed tigers, didn't have anywhere to hide, didn't have anything to eat, and they just were dying off naturally. They also talked about disease possibly being a huge issue at the same time, correlated to floods in some areas where bacteria and viruses were able to proliferate and just cause these problems with the animals. And then we came along. And we're a very ravenous species, and we just kill and we eat. And at the time we were doing it for a cause. We weren't just killing things for fun. So all these things came together, and eventually the mammoths went extinct. However, recent data has also showed that mammoths may have existed up to 2,000 years ago, which is about 10,000 years off of what they originally thought. So that means that maybe baby Jesus was playing with a mammoth one day. Ever think of that one? Huh? Maybe it was a fourth wise man that brought the baby mammoth. So after this 20-year period that I'm talking about in the future, I think that what's going to happen is you're going to have 20 years of little catastrophes and then one big one. Maybe this will be Yosemite blowing up, or Yellowstone blowing up. Whichever is the giant, volcano, this could probably blow. It would blow. It could also be, another ice age or something. The Mayan calendars that they're talking about, they only speak of one of these calendars because only one calendar talks about the end of the world. The other forms of this calendar talk about a re-realization of man's spirituality. A reconnection to the earth and to himself, which is something that I really think is going to come. It's only a matter of time before we have to do that anyway, otherwise we're just going to screw up this planet far beyond what we can repair. So, in conclusion, after this 20 years, the big bad thing's going to happen. And like I said, it might be Yosemite blowing, it might be this pinwheel of death that they're talking about, firing some kind of gamma ray at us from outer space. But it's going to be something. And, you gotta hope that you'll be one of the ones to still be around to see it, and you had a great run. That's my thought anyway. I think I've had a great run as it goes anyway, so whatever. After all of this catastrophe, once man has been brought down to the bases and he's on his knees and he's just barely able to survive, that's when the aliens will come. Crazy, huh? There's gotta be aliens out there though, guys. And I'm pretty sure they may have given information to people way back in the ancient primitive times of man, and that may have been how we did things like the Nazca lines and the other structures that we built with no previous real knowledge of this kind of stuff. I know, I'm crazy. Deal with it. This is the main reason why I haven't made this vlog yet, because I figured people would be thinking exactly what they're thinking right now. Cuckoo, 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 cuckoo. So pretty much that's it. That's my little summary of what I think. There's a lot more that I just couldn't come up with on a whim, and I have to go out tonight, so I'm not going to take the time to write it all down. But, like I said, this is all coming from a guy who thinks that he can see ghosts from time to time, possibly believes that he can read auras, and thinks that superhuman abilities will exist someday. Oh, and Phil, I can make fire with my mind. So, that's me signing off for the rest of today. Final words? Live life to its fullest, because you never know how full the glass is going to get before it breaks.